Alright, 2007 Santa Fe, and I've been slowly losing antifreeze. Every couple months I look in here and there was nothing in there. The funny thing is, here on the radiator, I noticed that it's full in there all the time, but the reserve keeps going empty. So what I did is I checked the hoses in this top hose here, which goes to the radiator. I put my hand under the hose and there's like material coming off, liquid. So there's a small leak in this hose on this radiator that probably steams out as it gets hotter, and that's how I'm losing antifreeze. It's wet down there under the hose. And I try to tighten up the clamp, but I think the hose is pretty rotten on top. So I'm going to replace this hose, and that hose goes to this thermostat, probably is. So I'll take off this clamp and this clamp, and the way I'm going to get this clamp off is not that easy. So I drilled a hole in this plastic so I could get a screwdriver in there to reach the nut. The nut's not the easiest one to reach. So I'll do that and I'll show you. If you're losing antifreeze, here are the reasons why. One, you may have hoses that have leaks. Two, you may have a water pump that leaks. You may have a leaky thermostat gasket. And finally, you may have a head gasket leak. And that's the one you don't want. Hopefully you have one of the other leaks. They're all not as expensive to replace. The hoses are the easiest and the best solution. And sometimes you lose some antifreeze over time, but it shouldn't evaporate in a month. Your reserve reservoir to see if there's any in there. You should check that occasionally. Okay, for this job I have a small pan to collect anything that might leak as I pull the old hose off. Here's the new hose. I got it for $20 at Discount Auto. So I'm going to start pulling the old hose off now, and we'll leave this pan under the car. I also put a tarp down. I always put tarps down now, especially with antifreeze. You might want to wear gloves and make sure that the car is cold when you're taking this off. Now, before you start, make sure you eyeball the new hose compared to the old hose and make sure it's the right size and shape. And you just remove the clamps. Okay, it took about 5 minutes to do. One thing is those clamps with the screws, they're not the best things to use for this. So you should probably buy new ones when you do this, just to make sure you got good ones. But I think I'm okay. I think I got it right. A lot of fluid did come out, and it caught in that pan down there. So it's a good thing I had the pan. There's quite a bit, about an inch in there. So yeah, when you do this, make sure you have a pan or something under there. Now you're gonna have to fill up the antifreeze. You see it's empty in there now. I got to fill it up. So you fill it up and you run the engine with the heat on. You leave the cap off and till it's totally full and it stops draining. Here's the old hose. There's a slight crack right there. This has probably got 15 years on this hose. I don't think I ever replaced it, which is odd, but there is a cut right there. You can see it. And I think that's where it was leaking from. So this hose definitely was the problem. Now we're going to start the car up and keep the heat on and make sure that that reservoir is full, as we're putting more 50% antifreeze, 50% water in there. Distilled water, by the way. We'll keep an eye on it, and then we'll give it a test drive. Alright, I got it on heat and I'm running the engine. I just want to make sure that that stays full during this whole time of running the engine. That'll make sure there's no air in the system. It took about 3 cups of antifreeze to refill it. I use these wood sticks to check the fluid level in reserve here. You can see that it's got a lot in there right now. This hasn't moved one bit. Alright, I ran the the car for about 10 minutes driving it. It got to right below half, which is normal, and I don't see anything adverse happening like steam or anything out there, so I think we're good. Those little tears in those hoses, what happens is when you get your car worked on, it doesn't matter what hose they pull off, they usually use pliers, and what happens is they tear into the hose. I don't know why, but they don't replace the hoses and they don't notice that the hose is torn, but that's when you have leaks. You have leaks in your antifreeze, you have leaks in your air system when you get those codes that say emissions leak. It's usually because somebody put a plier on a hose to pull it off and they tore the hose. So be aware of that. I think that's what's happened here. Somebody tore that hose off.